The clock is starting to tick rather loudly for some household names.
What's next for Aaron Rodgers? Does he still have a spot in this league as a starting quarterback?
Let's get right into it, as we break down 10 NFL stars who are staring down the end of the road unless they have a huge 2025 season. Dalvin Cook, RB. There was a time not all that long ago that Dalvin Cook was one of the most feared and dangerous backs in the league. But 2024 was a case of life comes at you fast for Cook, as he was fighting just to make the Cowboys practice squad. And keep in mind, this is not the Cowboys of a few years ago either. This was a team desperate for anything resembling a running game, and it was still a major uphill battle for Cook. To make matters worse for the veteran running back, once he did get on the field, well, he was far from effective. In fact, he failed to rip off a single run longer than 4 yards. But hey, that's just the reality of the running back position. One day, you're the focal point of an offense, the next, you're just another name in a long line of guys whose legs don't have the same juice anymore. Cook had a great run, but if he doesn't find one last burst in 2025, his time in the NFL is over. Yannick Ngakoue, DE. He may not have been racking up sacks over the past few years, but hey, at least Yannick Ngakoue has been accruing some serious airline mileage. 6 teams in 5 years, including 2 different stints with the Ravens, and 2024 was no more settled, as he started the 2024 season in Chicago, got released, and still couldn't stick on the Patriots roster, a team that needed any defensive help that they could get. Heading into this offseason, his future is as murky as it's ever been, and even if he finds a locker to hang his cleats, the odds of him sticking around beyond the season seem mighty slim, all things considered. This is a guy who was once among the most highly sought-after pass rushers in the game, and now he can't even keep a practice squad spot. If Ngakoue doesn't turn it around fast, he's done. Eesh, how the mighty have fallen. Russell Wilson, QB. The Russell Wilson era got off to a good start in Pittsburgh. He took the baton from Justin Fields and seemed, but for a brief moment, to really elevate the offense. It even looked like he might have some magic left in him. But just as quickly as it came together, it all fell apart. And by the end of the year, the Steelers' offense was lifeless again. And Wilson looked every bit like a quarterback on his last legs, while Steel City's high hopes wilted down the stretch under his unsteady hand. As it currently stands, it's unclear whether or not Pittsburgh is fully committed to giving him another shot at the starting job, and if he can't get it there, well, it's going to be slim pickings. He may need to wait for an injury around the league to get another stab at QB1. I mean, after all, it's not like teams are lining up to hand the keys to a 36-year-old quarterback whose last 3 seasons have been mid at best, and, well, disastrous at worst. If he can't regain some semblance of his Pro Bowl form, he may be out of the league in short order. Tyler Lockett, WR. For years, Tyler Lockett was one of the most reliable and underrated receivers in the NFL. But heading into 2025, things are not looking too great for him. Seattle, well, they're shifting to a run-heavy offense under new head coach Mike Macdonald. That is not a great combo for a 32-year-old receiver coming off a year where he finished 3rd on the team in catches and yards. The question becomes, who's paying big money for an aging slot receiver? Yeah, probably no one. That's not to say that he won't find a home, because a tactical route runner like Lockett should be able to extend his career nicely. But if he doesn't find a way to turn back the clock in 2025, his career could be over shortly thereafter, because who knows where the veteran receiver will land. One thing, however, is clear. He'll need to find a way to generate a massive uptick in production compared to what he did in Seattle last year. Otherwise, it could be curtains on what has otherwise been a quietly impressive run in the NFL for Lockett. Kirk Cousins, QB. Kirk Cousins was supposed to be the guy in Atlanta. Instead, he lost his job to Michael Penix Jr. before the season even ended. And now, well, he's suddenly an extremely expensive backup. The Falcons could keep him around, and they keep acting like they will. But it wouldn't be shocking if that were all a ruse to try and drum up some sort of trade value to recoup all that they lost bringing him into town. And with Cousins openly admitting that he played through a shoulder and elbow injury, an injury that the team never disclosed, this whole situation feels like a breakup just waiting to happen. So don't don't be shocked if they suddenly decide to cut the veteran before his 2026 money kicks in. The real question is if Atlanta lets him go, will anyone else be willing to give a 37-year-old Cousins a starting job? Considering his track record and the lack of viable options at the position around the league, there is a good chance, yeah. But this is going to be put up or shut up time for the former Pro Bowler. He's got to find a way to raise his level. Otherwise, he'll be ushered off into retirement in a right hurry. Mark Andrews, TE. For years, Mark Andrews was one of the premier tight ends in the NFL, a go-to weapon for Lamar Jackson and a nightmare for defenses. But heading into 2025, the warning signs are flashing bright red, especially after the way that last season ended for him and the Ravens. Injuries have started to pile up, and when he's been on the field, he just isn't quite looking like the dominant force that we once knew. Meanwhile, Baltimore's offense has slowly evolved to rely less and less on him, starting to favor his clear successor, Isaiah Likely, more and more. If they decide to cut ties, Andrews would probably get another shot somewhere else, but the demand for tight ends who are on the wrong side of 30 and struggling to stay healthy isn't exactly high. One more injury-plagued or underwhelming season in 2025 could be the end for one of the best tight ends of his generation. Davante Adams, WR. Just a couple of years ago, Davante Adams was arguably the best wide receiver in football, a route-running savant who could make any quarterback look good. Now, the bigger concern than the team failure with the Jets was that Adams just hasn't quite looked like himself. He's still a solid receiver, but the explosive game-breaking ability that made him elite really has started to fade. And in a league that prioritizes youth and speed at the position, that's some bad news. If 2025 is another meh season, well, the league might decide to move on sooner than he expects. Aaron Rodgers, QB. Aaron Rodgers has spent the last few years convincing the world that he doesn't care what people think. And yet, he's been doing everything possible to make sure that they keep thinking about him. But heading into this offseason, there's actually a pretty good reason to discuss Rodgers. That's right, gotta talk about his NFL future. Given his Hall of Fame resume, it seems likely that someone will roll the dice on the aging quarterback this offseason. But when you factor in his play last season, I don't think it's that hard to wonder if another invalid season would spell the end for one of the best QBs the game has ever seen. Rodgers is a former 4-time MVP and likely a first-ballot Hall of Famer, but since he joined the New York Jets 2 seasons ago, it's just been a dreadful run. It does, however, seem like he'll get one more chance, one last opportunity to prove that he can still be the face of a franchise and not just the topic of discussion for all the talking heads rambling about his latest hot take. But the NFL legend better take this one seriously, because one more strike and he could be out for good. Ezekiel Elliott, RB. There was a time when Ezekiel Elliott wasn't just the best running back in Dallas, he was the best running back in football. Back when he was Zeke, a relentless force punishing defenders with his power, wearing teams down with his vision and balance. Back when the Cowboys built their entire offense around him and dared teams to try and stop it. But those days, well, sorry Cowboys fans, but they might as well be ancient history. The Cowboys brought him back in 2024 for one last ride, but that was all it was, one last ride. They did not trust him as a lead back. They barely trusted him as a role player. He was given 74 carries and got to just 226 yards. But when it became unavoidably clear that the burst was gone, that the power just wasn't what it once was, they did what teams always do in these situations. They moved on. Elliott landed with the Chargers, hoping for a second chance. Well, he never got one. Not a single carry. Not a single opportunity to prove that there was anything left. So maybe that tells us all we need to know. This has always been the cruel reality of the position. Running backs don't fade gracefully. They drop off a cliff. He might get one more shot in 2025, one last training camp invite, one more opportunity to prove that he still belongs. But if he doesn't take advantage of that, if he doesn't show something immediately, then it's over. And the player who once looked like he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory will become just another reminder of how quickly the NFL moves on, regardless of how talented you once were. Jerry Hughes, DE. Jerry Hughes has had a long and respected career, but at this point, I think it's fair to wonder if the ride is coming to an end. Hughes played just 7 games for the Texans, finishing with a grand total of 5 tackles, no sacks, no game-changing plays. Long story short, he did not make much of an impact at all. Just a veteran defensive end fighting to keep his name on the depth chart. And in a league where front offices are always looking for younger, cheaper, and faster options, that is not the kind of production that keeps you employed. Maybe he still has a little bit left in the tank, But if 2025 goes anything like 2024, then this very well could be the end of the road for one of the most underrated defensive linemen of his era. But hey, which NFL star do you think could be out of the NFL if they don't have a great year? Who do you think we're right on here? Who do you think we're wrong about? Is there anyone that we may have missed? Let us know in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, then clicking the like button helps us out a ton. And we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.